not trying is not an option.
Alignment of, having a shared goal and dream happened first. Then the idea got co-created later.
Entrepreneurship is hard. Social entrepreneurship is even harder. So what not to do? Top 3 don'ts for budding entrepreneurs. Sometimes, people say that, okay, let's take a plunge, and we should not do this for all the wrong reasons. And please, they should never do this for money, right? Because
exactly.
There are many things we can do for money, but definitely not entrepreneurship.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Fintech Ki Baat Dil Se. Today we have with us 2 very special people who are the founders of RangDe, a social investing impact platform that caters to the needs of people at grassroots levels and make sure they have access to the credit and financial services as and when needed. Having said that, we have with us Smita Ram and Mr. Ram, who are both founders of RangDe. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today.
Thank you, Shreyas.
Thank you so much,
pleasure.
Shreyas. Thank you, Shreyas.
Thank you so much. It's always great having you here. Having said that, right, financial inclusion is a subject that I'm really passionate about, and RangDe was one of the companies that I really wanted to talk about and interview, and I think I finally got that today. So I'm very happy and excited, as you can see. Let's hear a bit about you guys. Let's start with Smita ma'am. Essentially, how has your journey been? Right, you started this almost a decade back when fintechs, P2P lending, and even a digital platform for any kind of financial services was not that popular. So, what kind of got you into this industry, social investing, and all of that? Over to you.
Sure. It's actually more than a decade, Shreyas. We've been around for 15.5 years now, so it feels like a really long time. The idea behind starting RangDe, I mean, even though both Ram and I wanted to do something in the social space, P2P and, credit was not something, that came to us very naturally. That was not like the first idea. But a series of events actually led us to realize the importance of making credit affordable and accessible, and the kind of impact that it could have in some sense, alleviating poverty in the country. Right? So we realized that, poverty was something that we wanted to work on. But we realized that, poverty is not just, it's not just an issue, right? It leads to many other aspects, like somebody not getting access to good quality education, somebody not getting good quality healthcare. All of this has its roots in poverty, and we felt that credit could actually be that it could be that game changer that could help people overcome poverty. So that's how this whole credit thing happened. But I'll let Ram build on why we started it and what all led to us starting RangDe.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think the idea was simple. The idea was to, really start something meaningful when we are still young and high on passion, because we are very clear that in our minds that, we won't go too far. But what was something which was really clear in our minds that, we should, try.
Right.
Not trying is not an option. We were okay to fail, and we could always look back and say that we tried.
Exactly.
And to be honest, we may look like brave hearts now, but we were actually quite scared then. And we felt that, okay, so let's give ourselves 2 years, right? It was almost like a sabbatical in social entrepreneurship. And we set a year as well. We said 2006 is the year, and we'll take this plunge. So I think, so that in hindsight, that really helped, because when 2006 came, we looked at several ideas, and coincidentally, that was also the year when Mohammed Yunus and the Grameen Bank jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Indeed.
So our initial response was, well, Bangladesh is a poor country. India is far better off. We don't need microcredit in India. But when we Googled it a bit, we noticed that India was actually behind Bangladesh when it came to access to credit.
Surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, so because none of our family members came from the banking or the finance world. So, and we also stumbled across an article which spoke about how borrowers who had borrowed from an institution back then in 2004, how some of them had committed suicide and how they were paying very high interest rates.
True.
And on the other hand, we read this beautiful book of Mohammed Yunus called Creating a World Without Poverty, which spoke about how credit should be designed and delivered in a manner which allows the communities to overcome poverty on their own terms.
True.
And the way we looked at the whole ecosystem in India back then, we felt that in India, microcredit was a classic case of a product designed exclusively for the poor, but so expensive that the rich cannot afford it because interest rates hovered in the range of 45% plus.
True. No, indeed, I think poverty is a very complicated problem, and starting back in 2006, fueled by the passion, fueled by the inspiration of Mr. Yunus, as well as the Grameen project, I think you guys have done a wonderful job because as far as I know, RangDe is probably the only social investing platform that has been around for so long, and it has been one of the pioneers in the financial inclusion space. And personally being a fan in financial, not a fan essentially, but really passionate about financial inclusion, I think you guys have been an inspiration. So thank you so much for doing what you do. Having said that, how essentially did you come across the problem statement that this is there, right? So I mean, obviously one was the things that you saw around you and what you essentially came across. Mr. Yunus was one of the inspirations, but how did you understand that this is what you want to solve for? Because problem statements are around everyone and we see a lot of problem statements, but to be sure about something that ये चीज के लिए नौकरी छोड़ के कूदना है, let's take that risk. That is something has to be driving you, or there has to be some kind of a conviction. So how did you know this was that?
So I think for me, my own, I think it's, different for both of us. The seed in some sense of doing something, different was sown during my engineering. I did a fundraiser for an orphanage during my second year of engineering. By the way, this college was not an ordinary college. It's the same college where Ram Gopal Verma studied.
Oh.
Which so Siddhartha Engineering College in Vijayawada.
Okay.
So it was quite infamous for its campus violence, but this fundraiser ended that violence overnight.
Oh,
but
wow!
And thanks to a very small design change which we did in the format of this fundraiser, at a very last minute, we decided to celebrate the birthdays of all the children who were living in this orphanage in our campus as part of this fundraiser.
Understood.
And that small design change changed everything, because people were now looking for reasons to come together, to join forces, to make sure that we are able to have perhaps the best birthday bash Vijayawada had ever seen.
True.
So that had a very profound impact on me, because the way I interpreted that whole transformation was that event ended up becoming a universal expression of empathy for the entire campus. Right? It's because it's quite possible that we may live an entire life not expressing empathy just because nobody presented us an opportunity.
True.
So that had a very profound impact on my thinking, and so it was very clear in my mind that I should take a plunge at some point. And then a few years down the line, I met Smita at a volunteering event, and both of us had this desire to do something meaningful. Therefore the transition was a lot easier than actually it appears. Over to Smita.
For me personally, it was really because I come from a communications background. I was doing my undergrads in mass communication. And somewhere I always felt that, can my communication skills be used to create a larger impact, to create awareness about some of the problems that India faces. Because very often we realize that not a lot of us are aware of some of the problems that we face as a country, right? Awareness about social issues is still very poor. So I felt that can I actually, instead of going the traditional route of, pursuing an opportunity with the media company or as a journalist, can I actually use my skills to create larger impact? So I felt that that was my purpose and I should do something about it. And that's how I joined, I switched gears from being an undergrad in mass communication. I changed over to social work. I did my master's in social work, and that's how my journey in the space began. And of course, like Ram said, once we met, our journey into the social space kind of got accelerated because you need somebody in this journey. At least I felt that I needed somebody on this journey who believed in what I was thinking of, because until then, all family members, friends, peers were all trying to pull you down, saying that, you're being an idealist, that, nobody can actually support you in this journey. Do this after retirement, follow your traditional career path, and then once you do well and you have earned enough, then you can do this after retirement. And I was like, nahi, if you want to do it when you have everything going for you, when you're young and you have that risk-taking ability, we should do it then. So I think that turning point in my life was, meeting Ram at that volunteering event, and we kind of kept in touch, eventually got married. And the purpose and, the journey was very clear in some sense. We didn't know which idea, what we would do, but we knew we would be in the social space sooner than later. That clarity existed right from the word go.
Perfect. No, I think this is really inspiring, and a lot of entrepreneurs face very similar issues, like you said, right? Kabhi bhi, koi bhi. And I've personally also faced this, right? When you are inspired by a certain idea, you need someone to believe in that so that you have some sort of validation to take it forward. And at that point of time, if people around there are not being that supportive, it creates a very hostile ecosystem for that idea and that business. So I think I completely agree with you. Having said that, right, starting up is something that is way over glamorized, and a lot of people kind of get into that because of that, and then they fail, and then they realize that they got into it for the wrong reasons. And it requires a lot more planning. So what kind of planning did you guys have in place when you decided that ye karna hai abhi, this is what we want to do? So how much time did you take, and what was the kind of planning that you did? So either you had, kind of to create a backup or some kind of a safety net, so that if this doesn't go through, you have something else to do, or you have some other source of income to kind of sustain yourself.
I think the first thing that we really did was, have that clarity that this is what we wanted to do, right? I think it all starts with that. And once you have that clarity, so while we didn't have an idea or clarity on what that idea would be or what would be the problem that we want to solve, we knew, there were some fundamentals that we had already cleared, which is we want to do something in the social space. We had also set a deadline for ourselves that 2006 we would really start doing something about it. So making some of these decisions kind of put like a very definitive plan in some sense, right? So it was a goal. It was like a milestone. 2006 came. We actually started to think about, hey, what are we going to do? And I remember, we were actually based in the UK then, and I remember several weekends were actually spent in just brainstorming on ideas, because I had like a bunch of my favorite ideas. Now I had several causes that he was very passionate about. In fact, for many of these, we even went on to do business plans, looked at, how would it work, what would we do, and things like that. And then the trigger, like Ram mentioned earlier, was 2006 when Professor Yunus won the Nobel. And now that I look at it, because 2006, I remember, we were mad. We were like, we really wanted to do something, and that restlessness had already set in. That humne ye date set kiya hai, but we have not done anything about it. But what would it be? And of course, that fear of failure. Now that it's, now that we are here, it's easier for me to say, we were willing to fail. But then that fear was always there, right? What if this idea doesn't take off? Will we have a fallback? And things like that. So 2006, when the idea, when we said we want to do something about credit, we saw that things started to happen magically, right? And there was no plan to that. And I realized that once you are clear about what you wanted to do, you have that clarity. A lot of things that will happen around you, you will have no control over, but it will happen. I'll let Ram share more details about that journey.
Sure.
Yeah, I think in terms of, we were also very pragmatic in some sense. We said, okay, let's put some money aside and build a small prototype, take baby steps, and see how far we will go. But we made a promise to ourselves also saying that, if it doesn't work, it's worth 6,000 pounds, right? So we said, not a penny more, not a penny less. If it has to work, it has to work within the 6,000 pounds. And then some of these things, ground rules, if you will, really worked in our favor because, as Smita mentioned, right, things magically started happening. We almost felt like the universe was, conspiring and guiding us every step of the way. So there were many things which happened and on the way, and but this kind of clarity and, more importantly, the purity of purpose really showed us the way.
Understood. No, I think this is really inspiring. And initially, most of the founders, as you rightly said, Smita, the fear of failure is something that kills 90% of the ideas, right? Because ye nahi hoga to kya? And that stems from the fact that what will I do if this doesn't happen? So either you have to mentally prepare yourself that if this fails, kuch na kuch to kar hi lenge, take this as a learning experience and move on, or you have a safety net that you can fall back on. So which was it for you guys? Like, how did you tackle that?
I think the first thing that we did is both of us didn't really quit our jobs. While we were incubating these ideas, we were nurturing these ideas, we still had our full-time jobs. But since we were based in the UK, the time difference was really, a big advantage for us. So we used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, spend like the first few hours of the day thinking about this, connecting with people back home in India, see if, if some of these ideas can get an early validation, because you're just looking at validation, right? That are we the only two people who think this problem needs to be solved, or there are more people around it? So I think just having that safety net that you don't have to worry about, how are you going to make ends meet at the end of the month? Would you have like a definitive income? That was one thing that we sorted out first. And we said we won't quit our jobs unless we have clarity on what we are going to do and have some, concrete milestones for us. And the second thing that we did was kept researching on this idea, saying, so while we didn't get a lot of buy-in from people we were talking to, between the two of us, we would research, learn a lot more about this space, see if this is a problem where, that really is worth solving. Because we wanted to make sure that we are solving a problem at scale, right? And this idea has the potential to grow to that scale. I think these were two things that we did, researching a lot and then making sure that we are financially stable before and that financial stability can be a very subjective thing, right? For some people it's X, for some people it could be a lot more, but we decided what do we need in terms of that financial stability. So when both of us were clear about it, we said, fine, within this boundary, we can see if this idea will work or not. Whether it was putting that seed funding together or having a timeline that we won't quit our jobs until, this idea has a lot more concreteness to it. All of these things actually work for us.
Makes sense. This makes a lot of sense. Having said that, right, the first year that you started RangDe would probably, and this is an assumption that I'm making, would probably have been one of the most difficult years to kind of, see through, set everything up and all of that. So what was the most humbling moment that you had in the journey of RangDe? Ram, if you could, kind of talk.
Yeah, I think, we were blessed to have some amazing mentorship and support. So just to give you a sense, right? So we started RangDe and launched RangDe on 26th of January 2008.
Okay.
And 2008 was a massive meltdown.
True.
Now, at the peak of the meltdown, we received a very generous funding commitment from ICICI Foundation.
Wow. In 2008.
2008, there was a global meltdown. And we also were blessed to have Dr. Nachiket Moore believe in us, believe in RangDe more than we believed ourselves. So it was so surreal, right? So to have somebody, stand like a rock as a mentor and also provide us the funding and the opportunity to actually test our idea and really launch it. So I think that was very, very completely, we still, find it hard to believe.
Interesting. Now, having said that, starting something of your own, almost everyone who's inspired to do something kind of thinks about it. But the major challenge here is that they don't understand the difficulties of being a founder and being responsible for everything in the company, right? Whatever goes wrong, ultimately, whosever mistake it is the founder who it finally comes down to, and it will impact the most. So it comes with a lot of stresses and a lot of sleepless nights and everything. How did you, as a founder, kind of manage that in the early days, and have things changed over a period of time? Smita, do you have a view on this, or do you have an interesting story?
I think things have not changed, but having said that, the fact that both Ram and I started this together, actually that has been, a huge advantage for us, because sometimes it can be a very lonely journey, right? When people around you think that, you're taking the road less traveled and things like that, sometimes you start to question your own convictions, think that, are we doing the right thing? And because both of us actually have very different personalities, yet the purpose is actually the same, we are able to balance each other really well. So when one of us is probably about to give up, or we feel we are not doing okay, then the other person keeps, we actually keep each other on check to make sure that, we are not going way off the mark, or, we are not getting stressed out. And of course, now we are not just on our own. We have a fantastic team that is backing us. We have a beautiful community of investors who are super aligned with what we are doing. I think some of the stresses that you undergo as a founder can also be minimized if you make the right choices and decisions about having, the right people in your team who believe in you and who are willing to work like you for very little monetary returns when they get started. That is super critical. Then having the right set of mentors for you so that, they are able to think differently from you, but at the same time very aligned to your purpose. And of course, having the right set of funders, investors and partners to back you. Because what it does is it brings in that alignment. And when things are not going well for you, this community will actually lift you up and make sure that you're going in the right direction. And it has happened in our journey several times. There have been so many crises we have faced. Sometimes not even because of what's happening within RangDe. It's something that has happened in the environment for which, which was not even expected, and that has affected us. And if we have still made it this far, it's because of this community around us. And I think there's been immense goodwill that we have been able to build, fortunately, and that's why we are still around. So all of this really, really helps. And when both of us have given up, I've seen that this community has said, we still believe in you. You don't have a choice, but you have to go on.
It is indeed a blessing to have people believe in you and have such a supportive community. It really, helps you stay afloat, as you rightly said. I want to kind of take a step back and touch upon something that you mentioned earlier on in the previous answer, Smita. So you said, right, having someone to share the problems or share the stress with and have someone lift you up in the early days is something that is really incredibly important for a founder. But one of the major challenges, that I've heard when I have spoken to founders is how to find the right co-founder, right? And I've gone, I've heard people talk about this to an extent wherein they are essentially willing to create something similar to a dating app that can, help you find the right profile backed by AI and completely over-engineered piece of tech, to have a proper co-founders meetup mela wherein you go and, kind of speed date founders and all of that. And somehow still that doesn't work out, and then they realize they met those people that are now their successful co-founders in a very different environment, which was completely unexpected. So what's your view on this entire situation? What is the best way to meet the right founder? Right.
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this question, because we didn't face this situation, right? And I also, and I have heard many of our own peers and, founders talk about this. But for us, it happened very naturally and in a very organic way, where we didn't have to seek a founder. The alignment of purpose came first. Alignment of, having a shared goal and dream happened first. Then the idea got co-created later. So I think we were very fortunate that we didn't have to look for, co-founders, because I think that's a really tough thing. Ram, would you want to answer that? I'm really not the right person for this.
Yeah, no, I think it's really tough. I think we should just trust the universe and make some noise about it, right? So because the universe would also not intervene, right? So you will have to make some noise, talk about it. LinkedIn could be a great platform, or offline forums, it could be a great platform. But I think it's very important that co-founders also complement each other. True. In terms of the value they bring to the table. And then that's very, very critical. So I think what we have seen is, in our journey, we have team members who are actually more than co-founders at Run. I'm truly blessed. And I think what is, we could very easily call them co-founders, because they are mission aligned with the mission which we started RangDe. And I think that is so important, because entrepreneurship is hard. Social entrepreneurship is even harder, because there is no precedent for social entrepreneurship in India. It's not widely accepted even today. So if you want to sustain, the only thing which will keep you going is the mission, the purpose, which is really driving you. So I think it's very important to have that alignment there. The other things can be, you can acquire skills and technology and other things, but the alignment is so critical.
Thank you so much. I think that clears out the air a lot, and I hope people who are listening out there kind of take some learnings from this as well. Having said that, this question is for both of you, and we'll start with you, Smita. What has been the biggest mistake that you have ever made, in RangDe, and how have you kind of recovered from it?
I think the biggest mistake has been not talking about RangDe enough, and not because as founders we realize this. We always felt that the power of the idea, right, the power of the RangDe model is enough for it to really market itself and create awareness about what we are doing. But it doesn't really work that way, right? And as founders, if you don't really talk about what you're doing, who's going to talk about you? I think that, I feel, is one of the biggest mistakes we made. And that's one of the reasons why, Ram always says this, for a long time, RangDe has been India's best kept secret. And that is because, two things actually happened. While we were starting up in the early days, there were a lot of things that we had to figure out, right? There's no playbook for what you're doing. And it's not that it can't be templatized. We can't look at some other problem that has been solved and apply it to RangDe's context. So a lot of problem solving had to happen in the early days. And so a natural, a priority was we should solve this problem first. But then unless you start talking about what you're doing and, start to build that community around you, you'll reach a stage where, not a lot of people know about you, especially for a platform like RangDe. I think that was one of the biggest mistakes we made. But I think we realized that now, and we are trying to make amends for it. That I think is not really forgivable.
Noted. Understood. No, I think it makes sense, right? You have to be your biggest supporter, as people say. If you don't talk about it, then how will other people know? Having said that, Ram, what is your view around this? What has been the biggest mistake that you have kind of made with context to RangDe, and how did you kind of recover, or how are you kind of recovering from?
Yeah, I think this is very understated, right? So how to build a great team. So we clearly made a lot of mistakes in the early days of RangDe, where we did not focus much on building a team which was really smarter, more intelligent than we were, right? So I think in hindsight, I think our inexperience and also the confidence, right? We had our own challenges with our own self-belief, if you will, right? Saying that, okay, we're too small now with all of that. And I think that would have, so whenever we had some amazing people join us, it was not because of us, right? Because it was a universe which brought us together. So we did not, have a strategy, a people strategy, for example, to going to some of the best campuses in India and telling our story and saying that, hey, we are a startup, proud to be a startup, but would you want to join forces with us, right? So I think I would strongly recommend that, founders don't, undervalue themselves, especially in the early days, and not compromise on, the quality of people you welcome on board.
True. No.
And just to add to what Ram said, and sometimes, we thought we didn't have enough money to get the right talent. But we have realized that now money can't buy talent, right? The really talented people who are looking for purpose will still join you, even if you don't have money. And our technology team is a great example of that, right? We have a world-class technology team, and and nobody is in it because the monetary compensation that they get. And we've had near zero attrition in our team in the last several years, and the technology team, right? So that's a great example of it. So never think that money is equal to, getting talent.
That is really helpful. I think that in today's world specifically, having zero attrition for a extended period of time is in itself a compliment and testament to the founders and the companies, and the team itself is kind of aligned with the purpose. Having said that, kind of taking a step back to what you were saying about not talking about yourself as a founder, as to what you're doing, right? I think I kind of it hits me now, because the first time that I heard about RangDe, and maybe I was not that much into fintech and financial services or social enterprises that much before that. But this was back in 2018, when I kind of joined forces with the Fintech Yatra, and we went into doing a pretty interesting project which we used to call Grameen Village, wherein the idea was to kind of empower and build a digital-first ecosystem for that specific village, using the startups in our cohort which were focused on the social aspect as well as the financial inclusion aspect. That is when I was doing my research, and that is when eventually I came across RangDe. So pretty late in the line, almost a decade after you started. But yeah, I think I would have been a lot more. So now I've definitely, I've kind of downloaded the app and I'm actively a part of it. But would have loved to hear about it earlier and would have been able to make a lot more impact as well.
Yeah.
Having said that, let's come to the last question for this segment, and this essentially I would love to hear from both of you as well. Top 3 takeaways or don'ts, essentially. I always insist on focusing more on the don'ts, because everyone gives advices on kya karna hai, aise karo, but no one talks about what not to do, and it is a lot more important, is what I believe. So what not to do? Top 3 don'ts for budding entrepreneurs. Let's start with you, Smita.
Don't let others pull you down. Don't let them question your idea. Yeah, that's one of them. Ram, you want to go next? I'll think of the others.
Yeah, I would say that, do not start early, right? Do your homework before starting, right? Sometimes, people say that, let's take a plunge, and we should not do this for all the wrong reasons. So, and there is a lot we can do while we have a job. So you can do moonlighting, and by the way, there's no conflict of interest, right?
Of course.
So, so you're not earning anything from moonlight. This moonlighting is to research on the idea, to think about, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Who are the people who are actually, trying to solve this problem? You can join webinars, go off on a weekend, go and meet them in events. So there are multiple ways you can actually build a volume of knowledge, a massive, volume of knowledge by not even starting something. So that's the second thing I would say. And I would say that be willing to fail, right? Because it's very important to time box. Look for those signals, right? From the ecosystem, from the customer, in our case, the community we are trying to serve. Is it, are we solving the problem, or are we becoming a part of the problem, right? So it's very important. We can call it the product market fit or whatever it is, but it's very, very important, especially in the social space, that, we should never aggravate a problem which is already, quite bad. So we should always be part of the solution. So that's something, and also have your first principles, right? Saying that what is that, why you are doing what you're doing, right? And please, they should never do this for money, right? Because
exactly,
there are many things you can do for money, but definitely not entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I would just say don't start for all the wrong reasons, right? And just make sure that the problem that you're solving is really a problem that you want to solve. And the stage where we are right now, I think people and planet are two things that we really need to, put at the forefront. And these are not good to haves anymore. So these are things that we really need to focus on.
Definitely. I think this really sums it up well for all the entrepreneurs out there who are listening to it. I think you guys, I hope you guys kind of, heed the advice and make the best out of it. Having said that, just draws us to the conclusion of the first segment, the founder story. Thank you so much, Smita and Ram, for being here. It was amazing. We'll move on to the next segment in the next episode.